hello everyone, and welcome back to this Montessori Parenting Conference. So I am here with Christine from Germany, right? Mm-hmm. And Christine was a participant in my courses, and basically I invited her today because I wanted her to explain a bit, about her own personal Montessori journey, because as she discovered Montessori as a first-time mom, and she has searched for resources and tried to find ways to improve her home and what she has to offer to her children. I think it's interesting for all the parents here to see, how to get there, basically. Thank you so much for being here with me, Christine.
No, it's good to be here. I'm not sure I'm there yet, but I'm trying. Okay.
Well, it's all about the journey, right? It's still a journey for me. Every stage is new, and I say that quite often these days. But my daughter is entering the teenage years, and it's all new for me.
Mm-hmm. And they're always one step ahead of you. So.
Absolutely, they are. So, could you introduce yourself and your family?
Yeah, for sure. I'm British, but living in Germany. My husband is German, so we have a bilingual household going on. I've got 2 sons now. The first is almost 2.5, and the second is just turned 6 months. My first son is intense creature who upset all my ideas of continuing. I always worked self-employed at home, and I thought, great, I'll just keep doing that with a baby. Not with this baby. Didn't work. So I'm not working at the moment. I'm just trying to survive my 2 children. The second one is much more easygoing, thankfully. So,
yeah, well, quite often the second one seems so easy compared to the first one. They have to follow, basically, right?
Sure, I hope he doesn't follow everything, but okay.
So can you tell us, how did you discover Montessori? When did you come across Montessori? What was, the first thing you discovered about that?
I think it all came together at once. I think from what I remember, my first son was around 12 months old. And he'd gone from being a very unhappy baby for a long time to all of a sudden, bam, he was walking, done. And he transformed. He was present. All of a sudden, he was active and interested and raiding my home, looking for chaos and everything to do. So I was looking for solutions, basically, for how to deal with this hyperactive person who was suddenly running around. And I was on some smaller parenting groups as well. And I remember your Montessori group being recommended. And it came together at once because I had also just got into KonMari and had blitzed my home and was enjoying that. And Montessori was also tying in slightly, or at least it came up from time to time in what I was reading about KonMari. Mm-hmm. So I joined your group and sort of fell down the rabbit hole from there, to be honest. Pretty much everything that I had in the beginning came from the Facebook group.
Good.
It was all I had time for, really, was just the group. And that was a great start. I found that actually a lot of my approach was in line with it in many ways. Obviously, I had a lot of things to change, but it just clicked. Sometimes there are approaches where you think, okay, this is good. And then all of a sudden, whoa, okay, no, I don't agree with that. That's not for me. And it puts you off the whole concept. But I never had that with Montessori. It felt like everything was actually perfect, for us. I'm a bit laissez-faire, a bit laid back with my parenting approach, I think. I'm not sure if it's lazy, but I also like my son to take quite a lot of risks. And that tied in quite nicely with the independence and the exploration side of Montessori. And it legitimized what I was doing in many ways as well. So I think that's how I found it, really.
And you mentioned like it felt, you didn't say natural, but like it followed what you were doing already. And it makes sense. If you were already observing your child and trying to respect your child, then yes, indeed, you were probably doing Montessori, because that's all she wanted us to do. It's like to observe our own children and to learn about our children's development and being able to follow them. So yeah, I think that's a common trait about Montessori parents or Montessori inspired parents. It's like they feel that it's very a natural approach. I like the mention of the lazy parenting, because I always felt that I was a lazy parent by, I breastfed my children because I found that it was easier than preparing a bottle and than cleaning a bottle. So I never tried that approach to give a bottle to my children for that reason, and co-sleeping felt just so much easier than going through the process to try to settle them in a cot. So I never knew that it was a thing the first year. It was just like easier for me. So, and in the end, easier for them. So we do what works best, right?
For sure. Okay.
So at first, with your initial knowledge of Montessori, what did you change in your home and family life when you first, encountered Montessori? What was the first things you decided to, change or do differently?
The first thing that I really focused on was the kitchen. Because my son, really massive food fan, and we were spending so much time in the kitchen, and it started to become challenging. He was raiding the cupboards, and that was fine and not fine. He needed some more direction. He needed things that he was allowed to do, and he really wanted to be involved. I think, even if it was just making, or what felt like making, mess. And I like cooking. So I needed him to be happy and engaged in the kitchen. So I did what actually turned out to be the really big mistake, which was to throw myself into building the learning tower. To get him up to the kitchen, which was a great lesson, really. The learning tower was fantastic for a few weeks. It transformed our life. He was active. He was involved. Turns out it wasn't right. He didn't need it. He only needed the step. And he was getting leaning, swinging, getting a bit, overexcited with the toy aspect rather than actually working with what was going on in the kitchen. So that was my first lesson, that it wasn't actually about the things. And it was more about, getting rid of the things and getting him involved in the process. So the kitchen was really where we started. We got him more of his own cutlery and crockery, which was smaller than ours. We had been using it already, but it gave me the push to say, like, just have real things, So that's where we started. I think really was the kitchen, and then everything sort of spiraled from there.
Yeah. And so basically that was, I don't know if it was before you took the course already.
That was slightly before
all the discussions that we had in the main Facebook group. But then why did you decide basically to take an online course? Because, we can find so many free resources online. So what made you take the plunge and say, okay, I need something more structured and somebody to guide me? Why did you decide to take an online course?
I think that's exactly it. When you're looking online, there's so much. There's too much. And I was already in your group. It was all in one place. The group seemed friendly. The leader seemed okay. Very nice. And it seemed straightforward, and everything was all in one place. And I was looking at books and thinking, geez, I don't actually have the mental energy to sit down and read a book. Not a book that might not necessarily give me all the answers, and definitely won't give me feedback. I could spend all my evenings, and my evenings were very short. I was also pregnant.
Yeah.
With my second son then, and my first son is say an awful sleeper. So my time was very limited, and I knew that I needed to get as much as possible from my time, guaranteed. And if I was struggling, I felt like you would be there to help as well, and the other participants in the group, and that was how it was. There's also looking even within your group and looking on the different sites, there's a lot of focus on materials, a lot of focus on toys. And we didn't actually have a lot of toys, and we were very lucky to have all wooden toys anyway. And that wasn't what I was interested in I needed more than that. I needed to understand, what the actual concept was behind it, not just okay, this is a nice wooden activity, that's easy to see and get bogged down in. I needed to understand what was actually going on behind that, I think, and that's what pushed me to say, no, okay, this is really good value. Just take the course. and the fact that I knew that I could get more support in the future, and even come back and do parts of the course again at different times when I had my second son as well. That was brilliant. So
yeah, that was important for me to offer that to people, because I know that children grows, and you can feel very prepared with a course or with a book when your child is very little, and then all of a sudden, a year later, everything has changed, and you need to come back to someone and say, okay, what do I do? And yeah, that was the idea behind offering the kind of lifetime membership and being able to take the course again and again. Yeah, so how did the course, help you finally? Because it was a bit more, obviously, and then you had your second, so obviously you were able to apply from the beginning with your baby as soon as he was born. So how did the course help you with all of that? Yes.
I think it really helped me with understanding child psychology behind, what was actually happening in my son's head. And when I could see, I still find it difficult to identify, but when you can see, okay, he's doing this, he's doing that, and rather than focus on the actual activity that he's doing, work out what he's actually trying to achieve. And that really helps you think, okay, well, he loves ramps, he's having a difficult morning, because he loves ramps already, you can throw down, a piece of wood, you can open up a cardboard box, and you've gotten a quick activity that appeals to him, without having to think, okay, I need to buy new toys or anything like that, because you actually understand what's going on underneath, which that's helped me a lot. I also love anything which tries to cut down how much of what I own, and I feel much calmer, because I remember when my son was getting a bit older, I thought, there's stuff everywhere. This is kids. They've been bringing so much stuff. I've minimized all of my stuff. I've got a tiny wardrobe, and my things are really limited. And then all of a sudden, children are sort of, and because you're desperate in a way as a new mother, you're desperate to succeed, or you're desperate to survive, whichever way you look at it. You do sort of try different things, so you buy different things, and suddenly you have a lot of stuff for a kid. which you didn't really want and you don't use. So I like that Montessori really helped me think about everything that comes into the house as well, and whether it's meeting my son's goals now, or we'll meet them in the future. I can think about a lot better, because I also know roughly the trajectory that he will follow. I know they're all different, but I have a rough idea in mind.
I do remember that you did your toys audit in a very KonMari way. You bring all the toys in one room by categories, and we went through everything. So yeah, it was really impressive that you took the time to do that. In one big room, and one afternoon it was done, and it was great.
I love that. That's so refreshing. Okay.
It is, and that's true. That sometimes, we buy for ourselves a lot before we have the children. And when we have the children, because, the budget might not be the same, but we start to buy more for the children. That's a way to keep spending. That's definitely something that I used to do the first year with my daughter. And definitely when we decide to be more mindful about what we buy to the children, and it's make everything else much easier.
With when the new baby was born, it was obviously it's a bit of an uphill sort of time, a bit challenging. We're at 6 months now, so we're sort of coming out of a fog. But I noticed, in those first few months, my head wasn't able to follow my older son at all, and he was all over the place, and that's obviously very challenging. And I found myself reverting to just buy stuff, buy toys, buy nice toys, and at least I was buying good things, because I know what sort of things to buy now. But I did find I reverted to that sort of behavior, because I desperately needed to do, to achieve anything while I was stuck under a newborn, and I wanted to make my son feel better. So you buy things. So now we're in that second wave again of cleansing. But at least I didn't feel out of control even then, because I knew what to do. And that's another thing that the course gave me. It felt like even if you come off the path, you know that you need to sit down and do observation. You know that you need to slow down. And when you find the time to do it, it flows because you know how to do it.
Yeah,
so
you can come back to it.
For sure. Yeah.
Even as a Montessori teacher, I'm pretty, honest when I say that I, fall out of the wagon several times over the year, because when I came back full time. I came back to work full time, and it was just hard because I had to go to a childminder after school and pick them up. I used to go to the shop with them because we had to do food shopping, and yes, of course, I was saying yes to a magazine and stuff, and it happens. And I knew as a Montessori teacher that it was not the best things to do, but it lasted a few weeks, months, because we were totally out of sync, out of balance. But as you say, we understand what's going on, so we come back to it and say, okay, enough, it's enough. Let's come back to basics here. And it's a great way to put it. Yeah, you know what is the way, to come back to it. So did you feel, since the course of you had your second child, as I said, so did you feel more prepared to prepare the environment for him, because that was probably the first time you could really do, with some of your pictures, particularly we have used them yesterday in the talk with Jasmine to show, how to prepare a space and give you maybe even more advice about that space. So we have seen, the little baby space that you have prepared. So, how was it to be able to do everything from the beginning this time around?
That was really lovely. That was a treat. and just knowing that, everything's set up and ready. And okay, he's going to have his own interests, and several of them I underestimated, because of course I modeled what I knew my first son's interest has been, and of course this one turned out to be completely different. So I was completely unprepared for his interest in textiles, for example, which my first son had zero interest in. But at least I was able to identify it quickly and accommodate it. The trouble was obviously in those first few months where you've got toddler running around like crazy. So my mobiles were all destroyed, despite all my best efforts, But it's back on track. He's got his mobiles. You can see if they interest him or not. You can switch them out. I'm used to thinking, okay, he's had that toy for a couple of days now. He's not really interested in it anymore. I'll take it away. I'll put out another one, and it's easy. It, rather than wondering, why is my child fussy? I've got to carry him around a lot. He seems bored. I don't get to that stage as quickly because I'm just, okay, we'll try something new. What are you looking at? What are you interested in? Try that. And it's quick and simple, and I'm back to the toddler. Which is great, because to be honest, the baby's very laid back. Toddler's still a nightmare. So having the confidence to just keep the baby happy, and the skills to keep the baby happy lets me focus more on my other son, and that's invaluable. So
we're going to say that your toddler is a little explorer, very active.
Nightmare is not the right word.
Yeah, but I understand the feeling. When you're in the middle of it with very little sleep, it's always a bit hard, to manage and to be always understanding.
He's a fantastic child. He's a real treat. He's hilarious. If only he slept. That's the only thing.
Yeah, that will come. But some children takes longer than others.
I'm aiming for 4 years old. I think that's going to be the golden age for us.
So in addition to the course and the Facebook groups you're in, is there any books or online resources that helped you and that you would like to recommend to the parents here on this group? Or?
I'd say I haven't been a fantastic reader. I have a small number of books which I like. I started off with the Wonder Weeks and quickly threw that out, to be honest, because I wasn't such a fan. It was really interesting, but to be honest, all the depressing bad news about what you were going to get was enough. So I moved on from that one. One of my favorites, to be honest, is Amber Hatch's Mindful Parenting.
Yes.
I had a mindful hypnobirthing for both my sons. So it was a natural sort of progression from that. And Amber Hatch is in the nappy free group as well. I'd read her the nappy free baby book, so it crossed over. That book is, yes, they're still not finished yet, but I've read enough of it, to bring me back down. And I find that actually most of the issues I have with parenting is never the children. It's always the parent, really. So that book really grounds you. So that's a fantastic one. I've got a couple more lined up, which look good, which I think have been recommended in your group, which is the Calm Parents, Happy Siblings, and Playful Parenting, which I'm looking to get into. But to be honest, for the most part, when I'm actually looking for real sort of fun inspiration for day-to-day, I like Instagram.
That goes quick on Instagram. You can select what's going to inspire you. It's always, you have to be careful not to think that your life must be like that life. And but if you select what you're going to follow, you can have a very inspiring feed. Absolutely, yes.
Exactly, and I've got rid of everything I don't like, and it's basically just a Montessori and baby wrap feed. So
yes, that's it. If you select only what makes you happy, that make a very happy feed. Absolutely. Happy feed, not happy. I said happy feed, I think. So I think I did ask you if you would like to find a quote, but I don't know if you did.
I couldn't actually find one. Or the only thing that I could think of is more of a mantra than a quote.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just going around all the time, especially when my son's being exploratory, is to follow the child. It's the only thing that really sticks. I know she says a lot of things which appeal, of course, it's all brilliant, but the thing that really sticks for me day to day is follow the child. So when he's doing something, you're thinking, what on earth is going on there? And you can just keep saying to yourself again and again, follow the child, and it always takes you somewhere interesting. So that's it really for me. I'm keeping it simple.
Yeah, well, it's a very good mantra, and indeed in the discipline course we work on those mantras. So find a mantra that's going to carry you and that's going to get you through the day. And if it's that one, and indeed that's kind of a quote from Maria Montessori as well. So I'm glad that you find something that resonates with you. And so something else that we talk a lot in the both courses that you've taken, it's like the self-care, right? And how to take care of yourself, especially in those early years, when the children, you have to be with them, and there is not many occasions when you can really be by yourself and have that kind of self-care we used to have, before we had the children. So I do remember that you were taking baths a lot when you were pregnant. But what helps you basically to be, and you talk about mindfulness, so maybe that's it as well. What helps you to be, the best parents you can be in those early years?
At the moment, it's, those first 6 months of life with a new baby, it's that time is really, tough. But again, I remember doing the self-care part of a course and knowing, okay, this is where I fall down. I think most of us do. This is where it all goes wrong, because it's really hard. You've only got so much time, and you're programmed to actually spend that time, I feel, thinking about your children rather than yourself. Whereas now, because we had to do that chapter, the least favorite chapter in the course, realistically, because I'd done it, it was all there in the back of my head. So even when, say, we had this tough 6 months where self-care, to be honest, went out the window, really, at least I was making plans for now when things have got easier. So I've started slowly to take the time to, I had, I think, the first bath in 6 months the other day. Not the first cleaning session, obviously, the first bath, relaxing bath. So that was a nice treat. Apart from that, I'm working on some exercise for myself, which I didn't manage to achieve at all with my first son, but I've managed to say, no, enough. If I'm not careful, you can go for years actually without any self-care, and that's what I'd like to focus on. I'd like to do some exercise. I'd like to do some yoga at home with my children. I'd like to do some sport at home with my children. I don't actually want time away from them when I think about it. I just want better quality time with them. And that means, I'd say we've moved everything into a lounge, so I can sit down, I can be comfortable in here with my children. I've started to get out my craft baskets. I do a lot of crafts, and I've worked out which ones of my hobbies don't work around the children and which ones do. So actually, I like hand sewing. It's a luxury hobby for me. It's not really that productive.
And you mentioned something very important here, is like to be able to do that self-care with our children, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I was super big at, sharing with you, because I think that's something that we forget, that we have this idea that self-care should be that big thing that we used to do before the children. And after, when we become a parent, it's like, oh, do we keep doing something for ourselves when our children are so young and needs us?
It doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And I think that's totally normal in the early years, not to want to leave our children, and want to be with them. But at the same time, there is a real person there that who was not a mom before and who still need to be, catered for. And so that's great that you're trying to find, what can you do that make you feel good around your children. And definitely some stuff like yoga or whatever makes you happy, basically. The lady who was Zara, who talked with me earlier in the afternoon, talk about dancing, and that's something that you can do with your children as well. So it's great. So is there anything else you would like to share with us about everything?
It's a fantastic course. But it is, for me, it was transformative. It changed how we live, and so that's everything, isn't it? Really, when you've got little children, when you're at home, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's fantastic.
Thank you. And definitely you were, a great lady to meet in that group. And I remember, you talking about it for sure, and everything else. And indeed, you are in the group, so obviously we keep chatting with each other. I think I saw question coming up, so we can check that.
Okay, all right.
Oh, you wonder if she's bored. Yes, generally a child who is like very clingy and doesn't know what to do might be bored, and it really depends where you are on your journey, Susanna. So maybe she hasn't found the activities that she can focus on. So maybe you haven't observed her enough yet to make sure that she has exactly what she needs right now. So that might be that. Yeah, and I suppose that, did you notice that your child, I think you boy is quite independent in the way that he explores, right?
Me? Oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah, for sure. But he was for a long time. I would have to say that's changed recently. He wants to do things with me since we've had a new child, but I think it's also just quite a typical phase for 2 to 3 year olds as well to go through. One thing I would say as well is that, are you bored around your child in a sense as well? I mean, do you need to bring enough of your personality? That's something I've found, that, I actually need to bring more of my interests into the room. You can't just sit there, or I was finding I couldn't just sit there and expect my son to get on with things. So I would bring in, my sewing, I would bring in my knitting, and actually he'd be interested. Or we would start talking about and looking at a book that I was interested in. So I was happy as well, and that really helped as well, bringing more of myself into the equation and less of a focus on the child, and my son became naturally interested, and rather than feeling like he was clingy, I was actually just enjoying it more because it was something I was interested in. Not all the time, obviously. Sometimes they're very clingy and it's very annoying, but I did find that helped as well. So.
And I think something that I say to all of the parents I work with is like, if we are not, purposefully busy around the children, and not just making yourself busy just for the purpose of it, but, every time a child sees that you are doing some things around the house that make sense for them, then they're going to be able to focus on their own things. What happens generally is like, we want our children to be busy first. So we make them, we give them toys, and then we expect that they're going to be engaged, and then we kind of move away. But in the contrary, if we start to say, okay, it's time to do the cleanup, and you take the Hoover and you do your stuff, then your child is going to see that you're doing something that is, makes sense for them, for you, and then they're going to follow suit and choose also something to do. It's more that way. And it's indeed in the classrooms that exactly what happens. It's like they see the older children being engaged, and so they're going to choose something and be engaged as well with an activity. And I found out that my children were totally happy when I was, as you say, doing my own things as well.
I think it's also a really interesting way to expose them to things which you might have decided for yourself are, too dangerous for them or outside their capabilities, as well. For example, with my son, I send a lot of parcels. And, I was always stressing, I need to get this parcel ready, go do something. I need to do this. Whereas actually, when we stopped and turned it around, we used it as an opportunity for him to start learning to use scissors to help me cut, the labels and the sellotape. And, he's still a little young and he's still not doing it, properly, and it still needs a lot of supervision. But you can turn all of your, or many of your tasks into something appropriate and interesting for them, even if you're just letting them watch sometimes, or hold something and try to use something which you might think, okay, no, that's too dangerous, or no, you shouldn't be doing that. Actually, sometimes it works. So
and generally, well, most of the time, all they want to do is to observe what we're doing, and it doesn't mean that they're going to really do it and be frustrated because they cannot do it. They're going to notice that it maybe not. They're not ready for that, basically, and so they're going to move on to something else that is more satisfying for them. But at least they've observed you, and they kind of know that they can be part of what you're doing, and just enjoy your company, basically. Yes, I think that's really important. What you say, you need to enjoy each other's company, so you cannot, refrain yourself from doing what makes you happy, like your business and your sewing and so on, because you feel that cannot be done next to him, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. Great. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today and for chatting with me. That was brilliant, because basically you always see me in the course, but I never see my participants that much, just when you give me your house tour. So it was great to, properly chat face to face.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it could be a fun part of the course as well. So.
Yeah, good. Okay, so I'm going to end up the live, but just stay on the line like that we finished chatting.